Hi, listeners. We're back with Karyn Starmer, the mayoral candidate for the Maine team. Hi, Karyn. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Daryl.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, and your ties to the Eurobadella?
So, my husband Neil, who's a local GP, and I drove into town in 1999 with two babies, basically, and we haven't looked back. So, our children, Isabel and Oscar, grew up here and went to school here. I, at that stage, had just finished working as a financial markets trader for HSBC Bank in Sydney, and time was ready for a change. So I joked at the time that I had retired, but I ended up being busier than any human could possibly be. So I have had ties with Maria Surf Club, which I still do. I was with Mirrabooka Riding Club for a long time. I was part of the group that reinvigorated Mirrabooka Riding Club. I have been involved with Swim Club. I have been involved with, I was the coordinator of Maria Jazz Festival for 10 years. I was the coordinator of junior rugby for Brawley Dolphins for 5 years. And I was also the president of St Peter's Parents and Friends Association for 5 years. And I just never stopped. And I loved every minute of it. And I still volunteer. And yeah, I have a deep connection to this community.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think it's interesting when we read the profiles of candidates coming forward. There's so many accomplished people in this race, in this election. Can you tell me, it sounds like there's a lot of demands on your time. How are you going to prioritize council work if you get elected?
So at the moment, I work as a journalist for Region Media. Until the council elections, also a casual producer for ABC Radio in Canberra. But I've stepped down from my radio just to make sure integrity is intact. I have made arrangements with my current employer that if I become elected mayor, that we will review my contract. So at the moment I work full time, and we'll see what we can do. But as a journalist, as a writer, you can work piece rates, you can do columns, it's something that's got great flexibility in it. So I will have plenty of time.
Oh, great. And tell us, what made you decide to enter the race to be mayor and to potentially sit on council?
So two things. One is frustration, and I have to tell you, anger, really. The other one was opportunity. So I joined Anthony's team, and there was the opportunity there to be the mayoral candidate. And I'm a great believer in opportunity. My children are now at university. I have the time. I have the experience. I feel like someone in their 50s. I'm wise. I've been around the world, around the traps a bit, and I'm ready for this job. And instead of sniping from the sidelines, it's time to put my hand up and get involved.
Well, it's great to hear that, because it's so easy to sit on the sidelines and make judgments about the way that things should be, but it's another thing to throw your hat in the ring. You did say anger was a motivator to step into the race. Can you elaborate on that?
So I would say my anger is a slow brewing thing, and I remember in my role as a journalist being down at the Maria Showgrounds that awful time when we all evacuated to town. And I was looking around there and I thought to myself, this is like a war zone, and we are in third world conditions in my home, and I felt the dysfunction, I felt the lack of organisation. There were a few people leading, thank goodness Warren Sharp was standing up and being a leader on the ground. But we were just almost left to fend for ourselves. And I completely get that it was an emergency situation, but councils and governments are supposed to have a disaster plan, And after that, I just looked, the system failed us. And from there, we obviously didn't get time to grieve, and we went into COVID. And so as a community, we were left by ourselves. And then as the world started to wake up again, there were a few development decisions that I just thought, we're just being left behind here. You know, that the consultation has gone. Council's not listening. And communities are crying out to be heard. There's decisions being made against the wishes of a lot of people. And it's like the hand is up and they're not listening. And we deserve better than that.
Yeah, it's a theme that we've encountered on this show before when we've explored different issues within our community. We've had guests on this show talking about the developments with the Maria bypass, the developments that happened with the land sale in Dalmany, the land development in Browley, in Churros. There's so many examples of that. And one question raised by one of our listeners is, how do you feel, this is for all of our mayoral candidates, how do you feel that the process with council can be better, and how can we become more transparent to voters?
In terms of development or everything?
Everything, I think. Yeah, it's a bit of a general question.
Okay, so we, the main team, have spent a long time thinking about our policies, and one of the key things that we think, and I will be instrumental in leading as mayor, is culture change. We need culture change. At the moment, the drawbridge is up in council, and with proper change management, these are not just words, but change management and refocusing all the plans of council, community engagement, development, everything becomes community first. So the response to everything is, what does the community think of this? What does the community need? Instead of the community being a problem that needs to go away. So culture change is our first step.
And aside from culture change, or in addition to culture change, what are some other priorities of the main team?
Going back to your points about Dalmany and Churros for development examples, and I can also think of the example of the development up in Rosedale. It's showing a 1980s attitude to development, whereby developers have a parcel of land. Council looks at it as if, you know, does it fit the LEP? Does it fit within, you know, the fire restrictions? And it's almost a rubber stamp. Whereas if you look around this country at more progressive councils, more imaginative councils, you can design new communities so that you do not have to clear fell. That in the case of the development up at Rosedale, where I believe 1,100 lots are going in, there's no parks. There's nowhere for the community to gather. We don't have a street tree policy. So we have this empty space. We're going to have 1,100 houses, let's say 3,000 people living there. Where are they going to gather? How are they going to get over to Little Rosedale Beach? Is it going to be another drive-in, drive-out suburb? Like, that's poor planning. So we're all about modern planning. And there are plenty of examples out there. We do not have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, excellent. So, you know, you've kind of brushed on several hot topics in what you just said about planning. You know, one of the major issues in our shire is, you know, we have a housing shortage, and people are, you know, looking for affordable rentals and looking for places to live. And a lot of the people who are feeling the crunch are people who have spent years and years here in Maria, and now that there's new people coming into the shire and more money and house prices going up, it's getting a bit tougher. What do you think, what kind of role can council play in that situation?
Council can be a leader, an absolute leader, and very good economists are writing plenty of papers at the moment. There's lots of thought going into the housing crisis, because as you know, it's not just here in the Eurobodalla, although it has been exacerbated here because of the fires. You know, we lost 500 houses. So what council can do is they can actively engage to make sure that Housing developments have social housing in it, and that's not public housing, that's social housing for people with special needs, with disabilities. We can also have housing partnerships whereby we have public-private partnerships whereby young people on low incomes can buy their block of land, they can build a home, and they can get a foot in the door. Because, as I was saying about the papers being written, it's not just a matter of releasing more stock onto the market, because investors are snapping those up. You know, it's not first home buyers. And for people like myself who bring up children here, we want them to be able to live here, afford to buy a block of land. So we are not anti-development at all. People want to live here just like we do, you know, and we need to learn how to share this place, but it doesn't have to be at the expense of our lifestyle.
Yeah. Good to hear. Great. Thank you. You know, you also touched on the environmental destruction that we've seen in our Shire lately, and obviously a lot of us feel that even more after the bushfires when we've already lost so much. As you may be aware, the current council has been asked to declare a climate emergency, and they've declined. How do you feel about that? Will you be calling a climate emergency if you are elected?
Of course. I'm laughing because it's of course. Like, it's a no-brainer. I mean, COP26 is on at the moment. We are living this emergency. Like, it's beautiful and rainy right now, but that doesn't mean we're not going to have a hot summer. We are going to have droughts again. We are going to have bushfires again. We are in an emergency. We need more shade. We need everything that the scientists are telling us to do. So yes, that's our number one step.
Right. How do you feel about some of the major developments coming to town? So, you know, we have the bypass project, and we also are in store to get a new hospital. What role do you think council can play in influencing how those two projects come to be?
Well, obviously they're state government projects, but that doesn't mean that council should turn a blind eye. Council is on the ground. They are closest to the people that live here. So again, community first. They should be listening, and then they should be advocating. And if our council and the future council that I hope to be a part of and to lead, is that we advocate to the levels of government above us for what our community needs, what our community wants, and that's based on evidence.
Right. Well, great. Thank you very much, Karyn, for joining us today. Listeners, you can tune in next week, Friday, November 19th, again at this time slot between 10 and 1, to listen to all of our candidates give the second half of their interview. In the meantime, we're going to end with a song that Karyn has picked out for us. Karyn, can you tell us what you've chosen? I think it was something from Vika and Linda Bowles. And why?
Thanks. This is called My Heart Is in the Wrong Place. Feels like my heart is in the wrong place. And I first heard this on RN a couple of months ago, and they wrote this story during lockdown. They wrote this song during lockdown. And it really spoke to me because it made me feel about how we all felt when the fires were on, post-fires, and during our lockdowns. You know, we all felt a bit lost and a bit hopeless. But, you know, we pick ourselves up, we're changed, but we will endure.
Great. Karyn, can you speak a little bit about what you think the current situation is like here in our Shire? Where do you think that the current council have done well, and where do you think there's room for improvement?
Well, room for improvement, I think there's plenty of room for improvement. So I've been here over 2 decades, and I've watched various mayors and various councils. I think at the moment we've got the balance wrong. So council is a $200 million a year business, and observing, it's easy to see that council laws have become a vote That's all they've become. And with the delegation of authorities, the council executive and the general manager are now leading the agenda, and that's given us a lot of problems. In order to fix that, we need to have educated, experienced people who can lead the agenda and turn it around a bit so that council staff are back there to assist the councillors in making good decisions, and bring that needle back to the centre. You can't, as a councillor or a mayor, know everything, and that's why council staff are there. They're there to guide. So in terms of what needs to change is we need to have a new dynamic group of councillors who have the experience, who can read a balance sheet, who can understand legislation, so that when the staff put up recommendations or the staff direct council to do something, that they have the confidence to ask questions and keep asking questions until they feel comfortable in voting on very important things for our shire.
Excellent. And so, can you tell me what is the role of mayor in council, and how does it differ from councillors?
So the mayor is the leader, and at the moment the mayor seems to have become the chair, and a chair can direct meetings, but I also see the role of mayor, and this is what I would do as mayor, is you are the leader of a group of councillors. So you're not just the leader in the room, you have 8 colleagues, and I mean that as colleagues, that we're not combatants, and we come together, we represent our constituents' views. Each of those 9 people brings their point of view. That's how democracy works. And so if some people have strong feelings for or against something, amongst the 9 of us is where we get the balance there together. And then we take the group of 9 together back to the staff. And my role as mayor is to facilitate to make sure that every voice is heard, representing all of our constituents. At the moment, sitting in that room, it is worse than question time in Canberra, and it is toxic. It is absolutely abhorrent the way they treat some of the councillors in there. The staff slump around, they're on their phones. Let's have some dignity and some basic meeting protocols, and respect the voice of others, from our fellow councillors to our community who take the time to come and speak in that room. For some people it takes a lot of guts, for other people they have a wealth of knowledge and experience. They deserve to be heard, and beyond being deserved to be heard, their voices should turn into action if the group of councillors are working together, so that decisions that are potentially made within the walls with the staff reflect the community.
It's an interesting point that you touch on there, because it is also something that's been raised with our listeners, is that there's been feedback to the show that at times people have gone to council and given presentations and have not been heard, that councillors have been absent for the community feedback portions, and then just shown up to vote, and that's something that they'd like to obviously see changed, and would like to feel that their voice counts for something. Do you think that there's enough diversity on council?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, it reflects a lot of our society, doesn't it? So, but even I, standing up as a woman, I'm still white, and there's, even amongst the candidates standing, we're still not 50-50 white women. So we're not representing any other groups in society. We're not representing our First Nations people. Like, we have such a long way to go.
And do you think council could do a better job of perhaps instilling a more diverse culture and workplace within the shire, within the council?
Look, I can't speak for council staff, because obviously people are employed to do a task. And the Association of Local Government is doing quite a lot to make sure there's a gender balance. But I do think we need to step out of our comfort zone, particularly as our teams, to make sure that other people come up further up the ticket. It's something that we talked about. It's got to be at the top of our list. Having said that, the Eurobodalla has changed a lot in 20 years. This place is very different, and that's why I talk about we're still stuck back there in the 80s. Whereas our modern society, there are people from all sorts of cultures, all sorts of backgrounds. Our First Nations people are finding their voice. We need to reflect that in our council.
So can you tell me a little bit more about the main team? It looks like you have quite a diverse group in terms of you've got a couple of women on your ticket, and people that seem to come from quite a range of different professional backgrounds. How did you find each other, and why have you bonded and decided to make a bid for council together?
So to use your expression, we found each other through Anthony. So I had...
That's Anthony Main, the current
councillor. Thank you. I had not met Michelle, but obviously as my husband is a general practitioner, he had come across Michelle before.
Michelle Hamrossi.
And I'd also not met Trevor Moore before. But Anthony had gathered us together. We first got together, I think, back in May. And I have to tell you, you see a lot of tickets that are gathered together by scrambling around, will you be on our ticket? We've been a group of 4. We specifically chose not to stack our ticket. We've all got our own strengths. So Anthony, as well as being a current councillor, is an HR manager. He's a very experienced HR manager, so he has people and organisational skills, which are very good for the role. Michelle comes from a background she's in general practice, but she's deeply involved with educating ANU medical students. She's also a breastfeeding educator, and she's very deeply involved in environmental concerns. She's a Doctors for the Environment member, very passionate young mum, leading the way in greater terms than she needs to be honest. And we're very proud to have her as number 2 on our ticket. Then obviously myself, and then Trevor. Trevor is a gem. He's an ex-management consultant. In fact, he still dabbles in management consulting, but he has a lifetime of change management. He, like me, can read a balance sheet. He's got an astute eye. He gets outraged by numbers, by systems, by organisational culture, and has answers. And together we have formed a really great bond. We all love working together. We've been meeting weekly since June, and we just get on really well. We are so complementary, but at the same time, no one's disagreed. We are a really great team.
Can you tell me why you're running as an independent?
Well, that's an easy question to answer because I've never been a member of a political party. And on purpose, as a journalist, I have remained independent. It leaves us and my team completely free to make decisions. And it's actually never come up, really. And we have no extra interest. We have no conflict of interest. And so political parties have nothing to do with any of our policies. It's really what's best for the Eurobodalla.
Right. And what do you feel that your team brings to the table that might be lacking in other potential representatives?
We are educated. We are experienced. And I think those 2 things are key. We're also of a Anthony, Trevor, and myself have executive level experience. We're not going to be intimidated by systems, processes, governance. This is all familiar territory for us. We're not going to be blindsided. Michelle, with her scientific background, is deeply committed to evidence-based thinking and processes. And as I said to you earlier, you know, a $200 million a year business requires that level of experience to be able to ask questions and make sure the right answers are given to the community.
It's an interesting point. I think that we often shy away from thinking of council as being a business and putting a dollar figure on that. So to hear it put in terms like that is that's interesting. So what else would you like potential voters to know about you and your team?
Okay, I would like two things for voters to know about. So firstly, about our team is we are as professional and as smart and as engaged and committed as a group on a ticket can possibly be. There is no one there for tokenism. All four of us are ready and capable of representing you and doing a good job in leading for you. And let's not forget, we're going to inherit a terrible balance sheet. This Shire is not in a good shape. No one can make grand promises. So there is a lot to be sorted out. It's going to take a long time, and we all have the skills. The other point I would like to make is, as a leader, I have a few people who've said to me, Karyn, why are you doing this? You're opening yourself up to all sorts of criticism. And, you know, it's a big job. And I just said, because I'll be really good at it. I will be a really good mayor. Anybody who knows me in any community organisation in this Shire knows that I'm the sort of person that can get things done. You know, I'll say 2,000 sausages at 2 different sites, no problem. But I also can manage finances. I can manage a balance sheet. I can look after governance, you know, at a board level. And yeah, I get stuff done.
So speaking of managing finances and the business side of things, it's been a really hard nearly 2 years for our community. Bushfires, floods, COVID lockdowns, and businesses are struggling. And now we're looking at having a bypass, which if you look at some of the history with other towns that have had bypasses run through them, it looks like it can take 4 to 5 years for economic recovery to happen just from a bypass. So Maria is coming from a place of it's in a bit of a hurt zone right now. What do you think council can do to help boost economic recovery and to make sure that we stay strong as we go forward?
Okay, so I'll break that down into 2 sections. First of all, on your Maria example with the bypass, we need a bypass. Where it is going to hurt somebody and a group of somebodies very deeply, no matter what the choice is. So I think that needs to be acknowledged. But we do need a bypass. Maria, don't forget, is also has the council here. It has the hospital here. We have businesses here. So in the town has been parked out on the main street for a long while. So I'm not sure that the streets will be empty. Okay, so 4 to 5 years, I'm not sure it'll be that long. But here's the economic plan. We are a summer-based economy at the moment, largely. It's changing, but it's not changing fast enough. And the bushfires and COVID showed us how fragile our economy is. And it's also shown us that we need to diversify. We have a city of 400,000+ people up the road that are educated, that are middle class. Those people are parts of businesses that are not all public service. Canberra is only 35% public service now. We have a work from home revolution going on. We have a migration from cities to regional areas. This is our opportunity to become a hub of innovative technological business. We can be satellite businesses of bigger businesses up in Canberra, anywhere really. The other thing we want to do, which our shire for some reason hasn't done, but our neighbouring shires have, is we haven't brought in an innovation hub. Innovation hubs are basically you set up as government, people with great ideas for small businesses come in. They are developed with someone holding your hand. In Bega, they've managed to start up half a dozen export businesses down there doing that. And that way, people are making a really great living, being innovative, using resources around them and managing to stay where they live and grow employment. And that's away from needing people to come and shop and stay and dine. We still have that, but it means in the middle of winter, we have a productive, thriving economy.
That sounds very innovative. Thank you, Karyn. This has been a pleasure to speak with you and to hear about your campaign. Tell us about the song that you chose for us today.
Okay, so I have chosen an oldie but a goodie. So this song has a few meanings for me. I'm a runner, so I've done lots of half marathons and I've done the full marathon. Every time this song comes on, it just fills me with joy, and I just go that little bit harder. So it's Thirsty Merc, Summertime. So I have a very special memory of Thirsty Merc playing at Granite Town, and when they had the tent down by the river. It was so sad that that event didn't continue, but our whole community was in that tent, and from teens to 70 pluses, and Thirsty Merc came on and this song was on, and I looked around at my community and everyone was so happy and so singing, and just the joy and the connection, and that's us, it's just us.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Karyn. It's been an absolute pleasure.